Based on the true events, this feature chronicles the 78-day standoff between two Mohawk communities and government forces in 1990 Quebec. We're talking movies, we're talking beans, starring Kiawentiio, Viola Beaveris, and Rainbow Dickerson. Written by Meredith Vanush and Tracy Deer, who also directed. Kris, do you understand what's at stake here? If they hate us, we suffer.
Say something mean to me!
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? We're going to be talking about Beans, a film from 2020 from here in Canada by an Indigenous filmmaker. It's a bit heavy, but yeah, bear with us. Scott, take us away.
All right. This is my first time watching this film. I'm going to say, like, for me, biopics are probably one of the hardest genres to get right. Because in reality, like, we're either the heroes or the villains of the story, and very rarely is there any middle ground. And I think what this film did very well was take an event in recent Canadian history and show it in a light that's kind of refreshing, because you do see what I think was the best choice in this film was the editing of using the actual news coverage for its scenes transitions, in which whatever that coverage was is kind of the reflection of the issue the character Bean was going to be going on through into the next like scene tran.
Yeah, the editor, Sophie Farkas-Bull, she's from Montreal, Quebec. She actually is also the editor of Angry Inuk, which is about the canceling of the seal hunt by the European Union and how it had a disproportionate effect on the indigenous Inuit communities of the North, obviously. Yeah, the editing is solid. I actually really like that as well, the real footage. And some of those, like, man, some of those Quebecois, I wonder if they like went back and like watched some of the shit they said live on like the CBC or whatever and regret it. You know what I mean? Like, there was some harsh, like real comments towards the Indigenous population that were being thrown around like very cavalier in a very cavalier fashion.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Hindsight's 2020, right? Like, I'm hoping at least that these people are regretting what they're saying and what they said in the heat of the moment. But there were a lot of things said as well that was in support of.
Yes.
Right. And that's the thing that I think they did well. Like, they could have just gone and just shown, like, you know, the negativity and like the hatred, but see that there was people on their side as well. And even the one comment the one person made, like, this is all for a fucking golf course. Like,
yep.
Right?
Yep. Absolutely, man. It was just like more rich assholes wanting more rich asshole stuff caused this whole thing, up to including the Canadian military being called in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that, like, to be honest, like, I know this is 1990 and somewhat recent. Like, I don't remember this from my childhood. But again, back when this was happening, I wasn't really watching the news or anything. And this was pre-internet, right? Like, it was right around.
Yeah, I mean, but it was on the news. I was actually, my dad was living in Montreal at that time. And as a kid, so I was in like what, grade 6 or grade 7 or something like that, visiting him right after Oka, and having been on that bridge, the bridge between Montreal and the South Shore or whatever, and just like being able to, like, in my small childhood brain, being able to contextualize, like, this is the thing I saw on TV that had the soldiers and all that crazy stuff going on. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So what did you think of so knowing not much about Oka, what did you think about, first off, like, just the whole dispute in general, and then the way it was filmed?
Yeah, like, obviously, like, for a fucking golf course is stupid. And that's what they they did well with the news footage too was actually having like showing the developer on the news saying like, I don't give a shit, like we're gonna expand, right? And that's the thing when I say with biopics, like technically most biopics, if they were to do this this event, you probably would have seen it from the developer side. Like there would have been an actor playing the developers being like why they want this and everything like that, and then kind of build towards that and build towards probably the corruption that was going on to actually fucking bring in
what construction corruption in the province of Quebec? I have never heard of that before.
I haven't. Can you enlighten me?
You serious? Oh man, I don't know if you're joking right now, but yeah, like especially like the city of Montreal and stuff like that, it's like intertwined with like the mafia and like shady construction contracts where like politicians are paid off, money is taken out of construction to the point that like fucking bridges collapse and roads collapse. Like it's like the Simpsons meet the Sopranos. So the Simpsanos is basically what Montreal is when it comes to construction.
How did those trucks get here so fast?
In order to avoid certain legal complications, the trucks are always rolling. Now,
see, that was good, Chris, because you know not all our listeners are Canadians, so they don't know about this. But good bringing it out, right?
Yep.
The fact that I had to do that, fuckers, come on. I thought you were a professional, but yeah. So I thought they did well, and I think what you're saying about your own experience too of being a child and going on that bridge, right? And that's the thing that I thought was really refreshing with this film was literally taking a child's point of view, like a kid that's technically growing up, you know, starting to come into her own, and this is her backdrop, right? Like this is what she kind of has to deal with, and in reality not being able to deal with it well, right? Like lashing out and going that. But it's kind of similar to what like I wouldn't be surprised if fucking Kenneth Branagh watched this and kind of modeled Belfast kind of after this kind of thing where you're
like
taking one
like a trauma or an event that is like larger than life that the world thinks they know about, and then seeing it through a child's eyes.
Yeah. Even so again, Jojo Rabbit.
This film is yet another in back-to-back film examples of great use of subtext that is a bazillion times better than fucking Nope. Just to remind you, just so you really have hammered home what good subtext writing looks like, this is another example. Nope is an awful example.
Is this
no Variety article needed to understand what the fuck is going on all those multiple layers in this film? Great work, Tracy Deer.
So is this going to be the fucking running gag?
Yes, fucking absolutely. Scott is going to learn about subtext by reviewing films with Chris. That could actually be the new name for our podcast. Scott and Kris talk subtext.
Like, listen, when we did the running gag for Top Gun, like that was fucking good. That was a good running gag that we had going.
Yes.
Yeah, this one
is also
not.
a good running gag.
No,
you were going to learn some shit.
No, it's not.
So I thought Tracy Deer, so she's the story writer, and as you already pointed out, she's also co-screenwriter and directs this project. So she actually comes out of the documentary world. She did Mohawk Girls, One More River, The Deal That Split the Cree, and Club Native. Mohawk Girls then got turned into a TV series, like a narrative TV series called Mohawk Girls as well. She also did writing on Anne with an E, which if you don't know about Canada, for some reasons, we have this obsession with pumping out Anne of Green Gables stuff. Anything associated with Anne of Green Gables the world seems to really like. We pump it out like we pump out maple syrup.
It's not Canada in general. It's the CBC, the Canadian Broadcast.
And PEI.
Yeah. Hey, they need some funding. Like they need some location funding, and they're like, "What can we do?" They're like, "Fuck it, Anne of Green Gables, one more time."
Anne of Green Gables. Like next thing you know, it'll be like and with a me living in a tree, I don't know, something like there always is some Road to Avonlea, and we have a bunch of Canadian actors that continue to come out of the Anne of Green Gables genre of CBC TV filmmaking. Actually, so it's interesting sidebar. So because I'm guessing because of her work with on Anne with an E is where she first worked with Kiawentiio, the actor that played Beans, because she was the Indigenous character that was specifically written in. She played the character, the specific Indigenous storyline in Anne with an E. So I'm assuming that is where they first met, because then she got hired to do Beans.
Mhm.
But yeah, Tracy is Mohawk, and she is from Kanesatake in Quebec, which is one of the reserves that you see in this film. So this is almost autobiographical for her. And it actually took her like 7 years to really get through the screenplay, because it was extreme. Like, she had to do therapy to like help her through the trauma of revisiting these experiences from the Oka Crisis.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. But in terms of what you're saying, I know to kind of sidebar a little bit, but like this
Sidebar
fucking
to the sidebar to the sidebar.
yeah, like I will say, like, this fucking cast was great too. Like the
Yes.
casting choices,
Yes.
and I'm like watching this, and again, this is my first time, and I'm like, fuck, I'm like, it's Reservation Dogs.
That's so. Can we talk a bit about Paulina Alexis or Alexis? She's in Res Dog. She was in Ghostbusters Afterlife. Yo, that chick is like my fucking spirit animal. She's a badass motherfucker in every role she plays. Like, she's dope in Res Dogs. In this, she's just like rough and tough. Like, she's like a fucking Indigenous fucking Charlie Bronson, man. I fucking love it. I am so excited to see where her career goes, because she's like she has to end up in, well, I guess there's only one Tarantino film left to be made, unless he doesn't count, like, I don't know, weird TV shit that he does. Like, she could be in like a Pam Grier, Indigenous exploitation, like grindhouse, like actor. Fucking 100%. She's a tough motherfucker. I love her work. It's fucking great.
So what you're saying is,
oh, don't forget to drink, even though it's morning, because I said the T word.
that's the thing, right? I'm like, fuck. I'm like, this is way too early to set this up. But yeah, like, I think
she's good, right? Like, she's
she was great, and that's the thing. While the story goes on, right, you find out like her backstory, and you feel like traumatized as hell for it. Where she was like she was I didn't want to say the popular one, but she was like,
she's the cool one for sure. She's the cool female protagonist or lead,
like the hard ass, like the take no shit, right? And then when she kind of takes Bean under her wings, right, and then she was like, okay, they had the whole like little kids thing where it's like 2 minutes in the closet. Back in my day, we did 7 minutes.
And you also had to walk up the hill both ways in the snow or whatever, right? And we had to spend 7 minutes in that closet.
Oh, we have to sit. But it was 7 minutes in heaven.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, see, I was right. Fuck this 2 minute shit. I think that was Tracy Deer. Like, fuck, one day, fucking Langford is gonna be reviewing this film, and I don't want him to be. Like, he's like, we need to cut this down. It's now 2 minutes. Fuck.
The kissing scene was good, but it needed to be shorter.
Be like, there shouldn't have been 2 kisses. One was enough. We got it. but yeah, and then but that was the first sign kind of thing too, where she was like, hey, like, I'm sorry that happened. It'll never happen again, right? And then because her character was like worried as shit for Beans, right? And then later
she
on
refers to her as being like a baby and stuff like that. And that actually kicks off kind of their bit of that falling out, when she's like, you're just a little baby, and she's like, I'm not a baby, you're mad because nobody wants to go in the fucking closet with you or whatever.
And then that's like, what and then you see how like upset that made her, and you're just thinking like, oh, like, she's not, like, she's the tough one, she's not the
Like the
you know,
one
the
with
one,
the
the
heart.
people that want to date, yeah, right. And that's why she gets mad. But then you find out like her backstory, and you're like fucking traumatized. And you can see like how that was kind of really good writing that Tracy Deer and Meredith did, in which, you know, it, like you said, it was all kind of subtext, right? Like it was just like little crumbs. It was like fucking Hansel and Gretel, right? Until you got to the fucking Wicked Witch
Yeah.
at the end, where you find out who that is and why it's so bad, right?
So I actually have two quotes. I'm going to use one of my quotes, and then I want to use it as a bit of a springboard. Adam Naiman of CinemaScope says, an accessible, unsanitized drama foregrounding Indigenous experience, one that does not hedge on depicting embedded Quebecois racism and discrimination. Director Tracy Deer is staking out a fertile patch of filmmaking terrain. And I do like that. Like there's periods of just like lightness. Like there's that, I really loved that shot of the two girls on their bicycles, and they're just like riding, and they're having like a great time.
And they're like, we own this road. Woo!
Yeah. Like the DOP Mary Davignon did a great job with all the cinematography. She actually got this film got nominated for multiple Canadian Screen Awards, but I'm getting sidetracked here. It goes from these periods of like lightness and like, you know, like you said, like you're watching a coming of age story that's happening inside this extremely traumatic event. And so we see Beans as the young girl, and then you see all the other shit, right? Like from the Quebecois racism, sex stuff, like other extremely heavy stuff. And the way she shoots it is it's fucking palatable, and it's real, and it's tangible. Like the scene when they're driving, they get across the bridge after the soldiers, and then you see the white Quebecois people like throwing the rocks and stuff. Like, man, that is fucking traumatic, and it's long. Like it's not like it happens quickly. Like she just sits there and you just watch it, and she shoots the French Canadians in a manner that you can see them yelling and like almost frothing at the mouth and like throwing rocks and stuff like that, and you see it, and she just lets you sit there and watch the pain on the mother and on the children, and that happens in a couple different scenes throughout the film, and it's fucking heavy, man, but it's very real.
And no, and the choice she made too, in which, you know, the when they're having those scenes, each little like edit, when it moved from one angry group to another, there was always one or two police officers there that wasn't doing anything, right? Just their arms crossed or their backs turned, so they would just allow that shit to happen, right? And then when she has, you know, when Beans has that like emotional break and she goes after the cops, right? Like you feel it too, right? Because she's like bawling her eyes out, like, you're supposed to protect us too, right?
Or the scene in the town, that's fucking awful. Like not even just in the store. Oh, I do like when the like young French Canadian girl's like, yeah, take that shit, get the fuck out of here, like fucking steal that. But when they come back to the boat, like that is, I think actually that is the like, other than some of the like sexual assault conversations, like that is the heaviest scene. Seeing those men, like grown ass men, basically bullying these women and these children, like
spitting on them and
oh
fuck,
like and it's so visceral. Like the camera is right in there. She did an amazing job with that, which makes me think like, if that's what she was willing to show, like how bad was her experiences or her friends' experience and family's experiences during the Oka crisis, you know what I mean?
Yeah. But there was one scene that kind of took me out of it a little bit, a tiny little bit, is when they you know, when they first go to that graveyard, all right?
Yeah.
And then you see all the golf balls right there, right by the gravestones.
Oh my god, fuck.
And listen, I'm not,
I didn't know those were golf balls. I was like, what are they picking up?
Okay, they were golf balls. And listen, I'm not an avid golfer, but if there was that many balls in the woods, those golfers would have been fucking in there grabbing all those balls. You would not see any balls, like because especially if that's by a bridge and there's water, a lot of those golf balls are going to be going in the water, that these golfers are going in the woods to pick them up as the ones to shoot just in case they lose it. Be like, fuck, I'm not going down 5 cents, 25 cents a golf.
Yeah, golf balls are not cheap.
Because there was a good like 3 dozen golf balls by the end of it that they decided to just bury in the ground for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, they could have grabbed those, went in front of the golf course and sold them for $1 each, and there would have been a golfer that would have bought them. They could have made some money.
100%. I'm glad that in this extremely serious drama, that was the part that you were just like fixated on, was the cost of the golf balls.
I'm like, come on. They could have made some money. That's all I'm saying.
So this film has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, 79 audience score. It did very well, especially here in Canada. It was nominated for Best Cinematography. This is at the Canadian Screen Awards in 2021. It was nominated for Best Cinematography, Best Cast, and Best Sound, and it ended up winning Best Picture and Best Feature for Tracy Deer. It also won the Directors Guild Award in 2020 for Best Emerging Filmmaker, again, Tracy Deer. And it won Best Canadian Film at the Vancouver International Film Festival. So, great accolades. It's a fantastic film. I definitely look forward to more of her work. Yeah, I mean, do you really? I don't think there's really any issues with this film. It's like, it's 90 minutes, and it feels at points, it does feel a bit long, but it's the way Schindler's List can feel long. Like, you can't be like, why is there no more like excitement in this scene? You know what I mean? Like, you need the ebb and flow to make it feel real too, right?
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, like I was saying before, like what they did, like there was, what Tracy Deer was able to do was, even in the heaviest fucking moments, like the next kind of scene kind of brought you down, right? Like,
yes.
Like she was able to take you on a very roller coaster ride where you're fucking tense and you're like down in like, holy fuck, I can't believe this shit's happening. In which then, you have the scene with the girls like riding on the bikes, or you have the just the community just kind of coming together kind of thing, or just the fucking, at the end, the elation when it's all over, and then they're like taking down the barricade, and she's you can see it because it's not like the mic wasn't really on it, but the girl from Reservoir Dogs is like, don't drop it, right? And then she pretends to like like drop it, and they're like, you see them laughing kind of thing, because they're like, it's fucking like, it's over, right? And you can see the joy and the thing. And I think the pacing is done very well, that you are engulfed and you are captivated by what's going on.
Well, and I would assume that because this is a very much real experience for the director and the writer, having that ebb and flow also keeps it from being like trauma porn, right? Like, it's not just like, all the violence, we're only going to talk about the violence, or we're only going to talk about all the shitty things that are happening, and you just fixate on that. You get that, like, this is really bad, but people also go about, sort of like in Belfast, right? People go about their day-to-day lives. Like right now, like the Ukraine has been invaded for months now, but people are going to work, they're doing their thing, and like, oh, fucking air raid, during the World War II, the bombing of Britain, people went about their day-to-day, and like, life goes on, even amongst, tragedy and conflict, life goes on. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And that's what I'm saying. Like, in terms of biopics, it is a hard genre to do, right? Because you either know the story or you don't really fucking care about the story, right? And I think, even though technically I lived through this, I didn't really know much of it, but after watching it, kind of does want to like go back and read more about what was happening and more of the stories that were going on.
So I would actually, I mean, and maybe they do, I think this is a perfect film to show in school, like in public school, because we don't have a really good background in Indigenous conflict here in Canada. You know, maybe we're starting to have those conversations. I think that is good. I hope they continue. But I didn't know lots about residential schools, you know, in high school, et cetera, and you can just go off of that. This is such a well done film that, and this is why I'm using it as a comparison to Schindler's List. Like, I think Schindler's List is a great film to show about the Nazis and the Holocaust. Like, this is a great film to be like, hey, so the Oka Crisis, sit down, watch this film, we'll have a conversation. You know, it is one of the most recent examples the first example in modern times of an Indigenous nation standing up and saying, like, no more, like, it's the buck stops here kind of thing, right? So
All right, that was very well. Now
so the last thing I'm going to say is, again, I had another quote that I think, you know, goes kind of into my statement I just made there. So Judy Dry of IndieWire said, if rendering their story artfully through a camera lens opens just one mind, then Beans is already an unmitigated triumph.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com. And then we'll see when the next fucking Green Gables of Anne comes out, right? Like, it's a modern take now. It's no longer in the prairies.
It's actually a dystopian, and it's also shot by David Cronenberg.
Oh my god, you do like fucking, that's the next one right there, right? Like, it's like the apocalypse and they're like rebuilding fucking society, but it's old prairie, like
because technology's all fucked up, so they have to use like the old school, like turn of the century kind of like tech.
Yeah. And then every once in a while they'll come up and they'll see like an iPad and be like, I wonder what this was used for.
And then they'll turn on the iPad and there will be Anne of Green Gables playing on said iPad.
Oh, there we go.
Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.